Hello, this is Greg from SharePoint Maven. And in this tutorial, I would like to demonstrate to you and explain to you the top limitations we have in SharePoint. So as I work with clients and help them transition from file shares or other cloud providers like Google Drive, Dropbox, and so on to SharePoint Online, one of the kind of first questions that I always get is regarding the limitations that we have in SharePoint. And sometimes the clients are proactive and they ask me those questions beforehand. Unfortunately, what also happens is that sometimes the users find out about the limitations the hard way by experiencing them in SharePoint environment. So what I thought I would do in this tutorial is highlight those several limitations, and actually I will also try to demonstrate some to you, but I would like to highlight those limitations you need to be aware of prior to moving your files and folders to SharePoint Online. So the first limitation that we have, a very important one, is about the number of files in a document library. Usually, most are concerned with the size of files in terms of, gigabytes and so on. That's not usually the problem. The problem is the number of files. That's what limitation is all about. Now, if you have used older version of SharePoint, you might recall we had this, famous 5,000 item view limit in SharePoint. It's kind of no longer the case with modern, SharePoint that you might encounter this 5,000 view item limit in some, in some situations, in some occurrences. But to be honest, 5,000 item limit is not really the problem anymore. However, we still have the limit on how much, how many documents you can put in a single library. Just before I explain this to you, I want to briefly make sure we're all on the same page in terms of what a library is. So anytime you create a site, whether it's a team site, which is what you see right now on the screen, or a communication site, you get a document library. A document library is like a virtual file and cabinet. This is where the files and folders go. So when you upload documents to SharePoint, you upload them inside of the file and cabinet called document library. And that library obviously resides on a given SharePoint site. So this is a library that resides on my HR team site. Now, by default, you only get one library. When you create a new site, you can have as many as you want. And obviously, once I discuss this limit with you, that would be one of the mitigation techniques to create additional libraries. But let me first explain to you what this limit is all about. So if you go to official, Microsoft, website where they talk about SharePoint limits, they do have a statement about that. So, and the official limit on lists and libraries is 30 million. So actually, they do tell us here that we can put 30 million files and folders in a single document library. Now, honestly, don't try it at home, all right? I've never seen anyone try to put as many documents. I've seen a few million documents in the library, but I've never seen 30 million files and folders. But long story short, don't do it. So if you cannot put that many documents in a single library, what is the limit? Well, to be honest, there is really no hard limit that will just cause your library not to be, operational or functional anymore. They do tell us here that once you exceed 100,000 items, you will have issues breaking inheritance. So if you need to create unique permissions on files and folders. But I've seen the libraries that work just fine with 150 and 200,000 files and folders, and yet I have seen some libraries that have issues just when they exceed, 100,000. Let me tell you why this is the case. When you put a large number of files and folders in a single library, um, uh, different things can occur, different problems can occur as a result of that. For example, usually when you have that many documents, there is a tendency to have very deep folder hierarchies. And what actually ends up happening, you run into another limit, the 400 character URL limit, which I will also describe next in this video. When you have that many documents in a library, what happens, anytime you search for something, right? Instead of searching maybe, I don't know, 20,000, 30,000 documents, you are now searching 200 or 300,000 documents. So you get very different, yeah, a number of results, and maybe they're not going to be the exact results. Performance will also suffer, right? Again, when you have that many documents in the library, anytime you do something, let's say a search, performance will suffer. Another problem that might occur as a result of this many documents in a library, when users try to sync a library, essentially they're syncing the entire, let's say, 500,000 documents, right? Let's say you put 500,000 files and folders in here, and the library maybe behaves okay in SharePoint itself, but the minute users press the sync button, guess what it's trying to do? It's trying to sync 500,000 files and folders to your computer, and the users end up encountering another limit, the sync limit, which once again I will explain in this tutorial. And then I already mentioned this. They actually stated on, on Microsoft's, website, is that you end up running into permissions issues. So if you try maybe to create unique break inheritance and start breaking inheritance between files and folders, you will actually potentially run into the error messages when you try to do that. That's just a result of you putting more than 100,000 files and folders into a single library. And then you might encounter some weird issues here and there when you try to do some more advanced operations on a library, kind of behind the scenes. It might cause some issues as well. Or sometimes when you try to filter, for example, and find certain information. Once again, don't forget, instead of going through 15, 20,000 documents in the library, right, a reasonable number, you are trying to filter or sort or group a very large number of documents, and sometimes it's not going to work. You're going to get really weird results and potentially some error messages. So how do we mitigate this issue with large libraries? Because after all, right, you have lots and lots of content from file shares that you need to move. Well, look, you can create as many libraries as you need. So obviously you get one by default. Just go ahead and create additional libraries, because the library limit we are talking about here is it's on a library. It's not on a site. All right, it's not on the site. So for example, let's say you create a site for, I don't know, marketing or HR, and you have that many documents, just go ahead and create additional libraries. Just like in real world, right? Just like in real world, when you have, lots of papers, right? And you only have one filing cabinet, what do? You buy another filing cabinet, right? So it's more organized. Same idea here. Just go ahead and create additional libraries. And once you do, first of all, you're going to mitigate that 100,000 files and folders soft limit. You're going to mitigate that sync limit that we're also going to talk about, right? Because now I'm not syncing the 500,000 documents. Maybe I'm just thinking, I don't know, 50,000 documents. And it's probably less likely I will encounter very deep folder hierarchies, right? So you kind of maybe will flatten the architecture and your folders when you create multiple libraries. So that's essentially the only way to mitigate this issue of large document libraries by creating additional libraries. The second limit I want to talk about, and a limit that is often encountered by many users, especially when they migrate from file shares, is the 400 character URL limit. I kind of already mentioned this. This could be a result of a very large library, or even if you have a relatively small library, if you end up creating very deep folder hierarchies, then you will run into this issue. Let me explain to you what this is all about. So as you drill through the folders and subfolders, essentially it's like a file path on your computer, right? It goes, whatever, C drive, and then, folder name slash folder name and subfolder and so on. Same idea with SharePoint. So pay attention to this URL. I'm right now at the library level. All right. So actually, let's start from the beginning. Let's start from the site itself. Here we go. So as you can see, the URL is nice and short because essentially I'm at the root of the site. When I go inside of the document library, as you can see, the library name, right, is part of the URL. So the path became just a little bit longer. Pay attention to this URL as I click through these folders and subfolders here. Look at this. I just clicked once, and my folder essentially name is part of the URL now. All right. And as I click on all these subfolders, so pretend we have a series of subfolders, the URL becomes longer and longer. Now I paused for a second here, and essentially because I didn't want you to kind of waste the time by me clicking on the subfolders, but let me try to do this now. So again, as you can see, I'm inside of all these different subfolders, so really long path. Let me try and try to rename this folder, make it a little bit longer, all right? Or maybe try to create another folder, doesn't really matter, but I'm just going to add a few characters to this folder over here. Look what happens. I get an error message. Essentially, what it's telling me is that once I try to add additional characters to this folder, the URL file path essentially, exceeds 400 characters. So all these characters combined exceed 400 characters, and essentially tells me you can't really create any more subfolders. And all the characters count. It's the pretty much everything you see here. All right, the site name, the library name, all the folders and subfolders. Everything is part of the URL. So what would be the fix for this particular issue? Well, it's probably obvious. You cannot have very long, essentially hierarchies of subfolders. So first of all, you need to flatten your architecture, get rid of some of the subfolders. And second thing, you should also make them shorter. All right. And that's essentially, it goes back to probably some naming conventions that you might establish within your organization, but everything counts, right? So that's why when I see really long site names, right, marketing services or something like that, I mean, right, there's no need to waste the characters, just keep it nice and short. Same with libraries. When you create libraries, make sure to give them a short name. And then, of course, with folders and subfolders, make sure to give them a much shorter name. This issue usually occurs when my clients migrate from network drives, from file shares to SharePoint Online. And again, the only fix really is to flatten the architecture and keep your file and folder names nice and short. The next limit that happens all the time, this is probably one of the frequent limits that users encounter, is the sync limit. I kind of mentioned this already when we were talking about a large document library, but let me explain to you what this limit is all about. So obviously, you have your libraries residing in SharePoint, or maybe you're working from Teams interface and clicking on a files tab from within Teams. At the end of the day, you're kind of still working in the cloud. But what many users prefer to do, they prefer to sync the library to their computer. And when they press the sync button, and actually recorded a number of videos on the topic on my YouTube channel, you can check them out. But when you press the sync button, the files end up on your computer. So I have already done this, and this is what it looks like on a user's computer, let's say on Windows Explorer, after you sync. And In this particular case, I synchronized a bunch of things. First of all, I synchronized my OneDrive for Business, essentially my personal, kind of files and folders that are residing in OneDrive for Business as part of the organization. So I synced that. And then I synced a few libraries. So I synced this library that I have and the documents, as you can see here, on my C drive. And then I synced this HR document library that you just saw. Again, everything is on my kind of C drive. But here's the issue. The official limit from Microsoft is 300,000 files and folders. So essentially, you can only sync up to 300,000 files and folders across all locations. I'm right now once again on a Microsoft official kind of article website, and here's the limit. All right, it's not a hard limit. It's a recommendation, but trust me, you don't want to exceed that or be even close. Essentially, they're talking about some performance issues when you exceed 300 essentially 1,000 files and folders across all libraries that you are syncing, across all locations that you are syncing. Here it is. So in my case, once again, I synchronize my OneDrive for Business, a few libraries. If let's say I have, I don't know, 100,000 documents here, maybe 115 here, and maybe another 100 here, I'm now exceeding that 300,000 limit. So it's across all locations. So how do you mitigate this limit? Just do not sync that many libraries to your computer. There is really no way, there is no fix, I guess, at the moment against this particular limit. At the end of the day, try to work in the cloud as much as possible. Make sure to access the information as much as possible from SharePoint side, maybe from Teams interface, right? Because at that point you are kind of working in the cloud, always connected. But the minute you sync, you will start encountering those issues. One of the things that I always recommend that if you must absolutely sync stuff to your computer, maybe you have some non-office file extensions or maybe poor Wi-Fi all the time. Again, remember what I said in the beginning about the number of libraries. You can always create an additional library. So maybe you have, I don't know, a 200,000 item library, but you only need 10,000 documents on your computer. Well, just go ahead and break it apart, create an additional library and break it apart, the larger one into the smaller chunks. And this way you are going to sync the specific set of documents that you need, not the entire library that's in SharePoint. The last limit that I want to talk about, it's not really, I guess, a limit. This is by design, but something that catches many users by surprise is the limit on the recycle bin. So as you delete documents from, let's say, SharePoint libraries, as you delete files and folders, they all end up in the recycle bin. And while you can easily restore the documents from here, any user can do it. As a matter of fact, the unfortunate reality is that you only get 93 days to restore content from the document library. So let's say you delete something today, just count 93 days from the deletion date. And after that, everything is purged and there is absolutely no way to restore it. It's gone. Microsoft does not maintain a backup or anything like that, and there is no way to restore it, unless of course, right, your company maybe acquired, purchased some third-party backup solution. But out of the box, there is no backup solution in SharePoint. And just in case you're curious, there is a second stage recycle bin that's available. This is for situations when users maybe, instead of restoring stuff, they decided to empty the recycle bins. But unfortunately, again, 93-day rule still applies. So, for example, let's just say, my user Mary decided to delete something today, and maybe in 5 days she went into the recycle bin and decided to empty it. There are only 88 days remaining for me as the site owner to restore stuff from the second stage recycle bin. So it's 93 days total. So that's all I wanted to talk about and explain in this video. In the description of this video, I will include the URL to an article that I wrote a few years ago that actually talks about the same limits and some of the mitigation techniques. So definitely feel free to check it out. But for now, thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and see you again on my YouTube channel. Thank you. Goodbye.